If you're looking for me, you can find me at sherryspeaks.com. There you can find all sorts of things from metaphysics, spirituality, Reiki, energy healing. There is 80 plus Reiki courses there from $2.50 and up, and there's always a free attunement on the site. I change it quite regularly. So if you check back every week to 2 weeks, you'll see that there's a new free attunement that you can take. I hope the sound is good enough because there is a storm going on, so it's lightning and raining. But anyway, let's get right to it. What I wanted to talk to you about is I wanted to share with you my experiences when it comes to sleep paralysis. Okay, a lot of people have brought this up to me in coaching sessions, reading sessions, and yeah, I no longer have sleep paralysis, and it could be because the last time I had it was when I discovered what it actually was, what was going on with me. After that, never had it again. So I think me understanding and realizing the truth of it, somehow it stopped it from happening. And I would say I suffered from sleep paralysis that I can recall since like the early to mid 90s. And it used to happen to me so frequently that there were many times that I was afraid to go to sleep. Okay, so for those of you that are listening and you may not have heard of this, you may not have heard of sleep paralysis, what I'm talking about is when you wake up and you can't move. You can't move. Sometimes you can't open your eyes. You try to scream. You try to say anything. You can't move any part of yourself. You can't scream. You can't talk. Like I said, often you can't open your eyes. If you do manage to open your eyes, it seems that you can only look around so much. Like the movement that you have. You only have a little bit of movement of your eyes if you manage to have that. I can tell you, okay, let me go back. First of all, I never understood, for the longest time when it was happening, I never understood what was going on. But I can tell you this. Whenever I had it happen, and I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny then. It was like really scary. But when it used to happen, I swear, I would always feel a presence in the room. Even if I couldn't get my eyes open, I would swear that I felt like somebody is like in the room with me. Somebody's like standing, they're coming closer, I would always have this feeling. I would be, oh my goodness, terrorized. I would struggle. I would convince my mind, come on, you can move. I would try even to just wiggle a toe, just get it started. If you can wiggle a toe, maybe you can like get movement in the rest of your leg and then the rest of your body. There were times when I would struggle to try to open my eyes, or I would be able to open my eyes, but it was in the middle of the night and the room was pitch black and I couldn't really see anything, but it was always the same. I felt this presence there. I felt that there was somebody in the room. Sometimes I even felt like somebody was like right there, hovering over me. In my head, I'll tell you, I would be screaming bloody murder in my head. But I actually wouldn't be able to make even a little itsy bitsy sound, because sometimes that's what I would try to do. Now, the other thing that I noticed is that whenever this happened, I was always in the room sleeping by myself. This never happened when another person was in the room while I was sleeping. Like, you know, when I was dating somebody and if they slept over. No, never happened when somebody else was in the room. So that was the other part of this awful fear that would come over me, is that even if somebody was in the house, I felt like I wanted to scream to get their attention so they could come help me. Like I felt like, help me, help me. Something's got me like trapped, pinned down. It's getting ready to do whatever to me. That was a part of why I wanted to scream, is because sometimes when this happened, there would be somebody else in the house, in some other part of the house. But this always happened when I was asleep in a room alone. There were so many times I tried to figure this out, and it was so confusing. I tried to put the pieces together, but nothing ever made any sense. Like, why is this happening? And then, why is it all of a sudden something releases and I'm able to finally move and open my eyes? And that was even confusing. Like, okay, what happened that suddenly I was freed from the sleep paralysis? I would even wonder, like, okay, is it some part of my brain that's doing this? Is there something wrong with my brain? I would think of everything, but nothing would quite make sense to me. I mean, I've heard other explanations for this, but none of them made any sense, and you may feel the same way. Like, well, somebody told me it was this, somebody told me it was that, but nothing ever made any sense. Okay, now, this is the experience I'm going to share with you. After having so many times of having this experience, okay, after I had my son, and my son was an infant, we were living in the house I'm in now. My bed was facing a different direction than it is now, and I had his bassinet next to me, kind of in the corner, catty corner, but pretty much next to my bed. The thing is, I didn't have my son until I was like 38. So I was just always like freaked out and paranoid that something would happen to him. Maybe he would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be asleep and I wouldn't hear him at first when he woke up. Maybe he would fall out of the bassinet. I had a lot of fears associated with having an infant. You know, what if this happens? What if that happens? And now I can admit it, but back then I didn't admit to anyone that I was just so constantly terrified as like a new mother that something would happen and that I wouldn't know what to do. You know, or something would happen. He'd like somehow manage to get out of his bassinet and fall on the floor. I would even contemplate the distance from where he would fall from his bassinet to the floor. I mean, I was so freaked out about it and so worried about it. And you know what paranoia, what our own anxieties can do to us. Our brains take hold of that. And while we're sleeping at night, tries to work it out. And sometimes it comes out in the form of a dream or a nightmare, right? We're all used to that. We're all used to maybe watching a horror movie on TV, then we go to bed and we have bad dreams. We're used to that. We understand kind of how the brain grabs a hold of things. But here's the thing. I had already been suffering from sleep paralysis. It had already happened to me a couple of times while my son was an infant. And then one night, I woke up in the middle of the night. I remember, I'm not going to say it as I recall. I'm going to tell you the facts that I can remember. Okay, he's in the bassinet. My son's asleep. I am sleeping on the side of the bed where I would be closest to my son. I wake up. I don't open my eyes, but I wake up and realize I can't move. I can't move. I can't open my eyes. I can't scream. I'm immediately terrified. But the first thought that comes to my mind isn't just that I can't move. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't move. What about my son? Of course, that's where my thought goes. That's the first thing I think about. What about my son? I can't move. I struggle inside my head to try to get myself to move, to try to force myself to break free of this sleep paralysis. And believe me, with so much willpower I tried. Now, I did manage to be able to wiggle my toe, and I kind of got excited. I kind of thought, okay, I was able to like kind of slightly move my toe. Let me try to force myself to open my eyes. It just seemed to take forever. Forever. This seemed to go on for such a long time. Okay, so now I'm struggling. I'm like, okay, just try to open your eyes. And with the greatest amount of willpower, believe it or not, I managed to get my eyes open. You think I'd be relieved? No. That's where the real terror began for me. Because when I managed to get my eyes open, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. So, okay, the head of the bed is against the wall underneath where the window was. My son's bassinet was on the left side of me. The doorway was at the other end, but also on the left side. So bassinet and doorway are on the same side, and then there's the bed kind of middle of the room against the back of the wall where the window is. So to give you the placement so that you can understand, I'm laying on my back. And so when I manage to get my eyes open, I don't have to really move my eyes or anything to be able to see the doorway. The thing is, as I recall, the door was open. Like when I went to sleep, I slept with the door open because I had a small dog at the time, Lucy, that was a Lhasa Apso. And Lucy was a really good guard dog. Look, anything would happen, if anyone stepped foot on the property, she'd start barking. So I think that's why I'd left the door open, is so that Lucy could come in and out of the room freely. So when I managed to get my eyes open, I see a figure. Now, keep in mind, I said figure standing in the doorway. When that happens and you're suffering from sleep paralysis and you manage to get your eyes open, you're not going to lay there and try to figure it out, rationalize it. No, terror's going to strike you and you're just going to go, oh my freaking goodness. Like, holy cow, there's somebody there. There really is somebody there. That wasn't just that feeling I had that somebody was there, that somebody was in the room with me. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I was right. Of course, the first thought that came to me was, and okay, I'll admit it, aliens. That was the first thought that came to me. I know it's ridiculous now, but it didn't seem ridiculous or far-fetched at the time. What else would I think was standing there? You know what I mean? It wasn't. And here's the thing. Keep in mind, I said there's a figure standing in the doorway, and I really do mean a figure. Like, I didn't see any detail. There was no detail. It was like silhouette form. So there was no detail. It was almost like you were looking at a cutout that was just all painted black. I could tell it was a woman based on the hair. But the thing is, as I'm freaked out and I'm still trying to struggle to move, I noticed in what freaked me out even more, it wasn't looking at me. It wasn't like facing towards me. It was facing towards the bassinet. Okay, that freaked me out even more because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, aliens come to kidnap my son. I know, it sounds ridiculous, but what else was I gonna think? Okay, so that freaked me out even more. So now I'm really in my head, freaked out and struggling to try to move. So I actually managed to move. Now some people might say, oh, I managed to wake up, because some people might say, well, I was really still asleep, I was really still dreaming, and I just thought I was awake and I was paralyzed and couldn't move. It was really just a dream. I will tell you right now, absolutely not. That is not what's going on. You are actually awake. You're not asleep. You are awake, and what's going on is what you think is going on. So you really are paralyzed. But why? That's the question. Okay, so you obviously, just like I did, have two questions. Why would you be paralyzed? And who the heck was that figure standing in the doorway? So, like, after I was able to move, I got up. Of course, when I got up, I shot out of the bed, looked over in the bassinet, and of course I was like, whew, thank goodness my son's still there. That was like my first thought. So, of course I wasn't able to get back to sleep because now I got two questions on my mind, even more so than before. Now I have, even in a bigger way, what the heck, what's sleep paralysis? Why wasn't I able to move? But now I got a bigger question on my mind. Who was that? Who was that, and why were they standing, facing, staring at my son? Why? So I couldn't go back to sleep because, of course, would you? Would you be able to go back to sleep? No, I think this would keep you up, and you would be afraid to go back to sleep at this point. Okay, so I want to say at the time, I hadn't awakened yet. So I wasn't like a member of any psychic message board, didn't even know they existed. So I really didn't have anyone to help me figure this out. But obviously my higher self was in full effect back then. Because I remember days later, just the answer coming to me, like being like, oh my gosh, I know what that was. I know who that was. Because now I'm going to do another video, but this ties into it. I all of a sudden figured out what it was because since I was 13 years old, I'd been having out-of-body experiences. And I'd had enough of them, enough out-of-body experiences. So many. So I finally figured it out. I was like, I get it. I know what that is. I know what's going on. And I know why I couldn't move. 1, the figure was me. 2, I was having an out-of-body experience. Of course I couldn't move. I was still out of my body. You got to understand, during an out-of-body experience, when you leave your body, that there's a part of you that's leaving your body. It's not like you can leave your body and you can still be walking around. Of course not. Most people know that. But what you don't seem to understand is there's a process. Whether you're doing an out-of-body experience on purpose or by accident, like at night while you're sleeping, or because you had an accident and you passed out. My first out-of-body experience was due to the fact that when I was 13, on my birthday, my parents had gotten me a 10-speed bike. And a lot of the kids in the neighborhood, there was a lot of us, and a lot of times we would play at my house because a lot of times my mother wouldn't let me go to, this person's house or that person's house. So we would play at my house. And of course, out of a whole bunch of group of kids, there's always that one that is a terror, that is a nightmare. And I remember, I'm not going to say her name now because she's not that way anymore. She's a lovely, beautiful young lady. So I'm not going to say her name because if anybody sees this that knows her, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you were a terror and a tomboy when you were little. So I'm not going to say her name. Okay, I'll just say the street I lived on. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so when I was riding my 10-speed bike, this little girl that was, I want to say either my age or maybe a year younger than me, she had a form of a dirt bike. She was very tomboyish back then. No, she grew up to be just a normal young lady, but she was very tomboyish. She was always the one that was terrorizing everybody, always chasing my cat. My cat hated her. She was always chasing my cat. That's why my cat was always up the tree when we were all at my house playing, because she would terrorize my cat. We were riding down the road where I lived, almost side by side, and I really, I don't think bad things of people. I never think somebody's got bad intentions. And as we're riding pretty fast, she's looking at me. She's looking over at me, and she's got this almost sick, sadistic look on her face. And she started coming closer and closer to my bike. until her wheel caught my spokes. Now, she rode off. Nothing happened to her or her bike. She caused my bike to literally fly up from under me. The bike lands one place in the road, I land someplace else. And I literally hit the ground that hard. I lift my head, there's a car coming. I'm like, great. I managed to get up, drag my brand new bike out of the road. Now it's all scratched up. And I guess I got the wind knocked out of me. So I go inside through the back of the house. It was a 2-story house. I go up the back stairs and I go inside and I go to the bathroom because now I'm feeling really, really hot, like I need water. And I hear my mother outside like asking, well, where did Sherry go? And she's coming up the steps, but as she makes it to the bathroom, that's when I passed out. I literally passed out that moment she made it to the bathroom. And she freaked out. But here's the crazy thing. Seconds later, I'm out of my body and I'm standing there. Now, here's the thing. I never think to look down at myself. And I've heard some things like if you look down at yourself, you'll pop back in your body. I never thought to look at myself. But she was there. She was standing over me. She's yelling, Sherry, Sherry. And I'm standing there and I'm going, I'm here. I'm fine. I'm okay. Mommy, I'm okay. But she doesn't hear me. Now, that was very traumatizing for me. And because it was almost like I was dead. And I thought I was okay. And I'm going around and nobody could hear me. Nobody could see me. I actually followed her as she went out of the house to the back porch door. She never went down the stairs. She stood on the landing yelling for my father. When I came to, I tried to tell her what I experienced. But of course she was all into like being really worried about me. And later that day, I tried to tell her, hey, remember what I told you? That really happened. I saw you. I was standing outside my body and I was trying to get your attention. You couldn't hear me. And she still wouldn't believe me. I then proceeded to tell her everything she did, everything she said, everything that happened while I was unconscious. Now, still to this day, she never did say, oh, it must be real. She kind of ignored it because that's what parents do, right? They don't understand it. They just ignore it and like, let's pretend you didn't talk about that. That was my first experience out of body. So I had I had many out of body experiences because for a period of time during my childhood and young adult life, I would pass out very easily, and every time I passed out, I would go out of body. I would then, after I woke up, proceed to tell everybody everything they did, everything they said, and everywhere they went while I was unconscious. And it would freak people out. But I guess I would do that because I was looking for answers at that time. But there's one thing I can absolutely definitely tell you. You cannot be awake, conscious, and out of body at the same time. That I learned very early on. So at some point I did start trying to practice going out of body on purpose. And sometimes when you purposely practice it, it makes it even that much more easy for you to leave your body. For example, while you're sleeping, dreaming, you float off. Sometimes you think you're dreaming. You have to reality test it to see if you're actually dreaming or if you're actually having an out-of-body experience. But I learned enough about out-of-body experiences that's how I was able to put it together. Okay, let me wrap this up. Let me finish this up for you. Let me add the pieces all together for you so that you can understand clearly what I'm saying. I am saying that I was so anxious over the safety of my son that I was going out of body at night to watch over him. What else could we be going out of body to do? Who else could we be choosing to go out of body to help? Because we're so worried about them and we so badly want to help them. But that's what was going on. I couldn't wake up because I wasn't back in my body yet. Maybe I didn't want to get back in my body. Maybe that's how much I wanted to be watching over my son. But that is what it caused. That's what that anxiety over my son's safety caused. I went out of body and I watched over him. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this was helpful to you, helpful for you figuring out what's going on with your own self, your sleep paralysis experiences, and maybe even some of your out-of-body experiences. I am going to do another video all about my out-of-body experiences so that I can share them with you in case you want to know, including the experiences when I started trying to practice purposely. You can find me at sherryspeaks.com. You can if you click on the menu services, that's where you can find out about getting a reading from me, a coaching session from me, an energy clearing. I look forward to seeing you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video, and definitely don't forget to share it, because there are many people out there that suffer from this that would just love to know what's going on with them so that they can go to sleep in a peaceful way at night. Namaste.